Good morning. Welcome into the Morning Houston Show. It's Manic Xavier. It is a Manic Monday. Bama left out of the playoffs. A last-second field goal sunk the ship for the Crimson Tide. We also have Kennington Smith III joining us today as we get ready to have the conversation about where Alabama goes next and what the future holds for this team. Who opts out potentially? Already have more guys entering the portal as Alabama found out that they aren't playing for a national championship. But this is Box Eye Care. We're powered by Box Eye Care, and we are ready to take off.
All right, yes, it's a Manic Monday, and that's yeah. We say that the ship was sunk by a field goal. Was it? Or was that all hype last week? Did the committee use Alabama as the number 11 team to generate a week worth of hype and conversation for ESPN? The reason I say that is how are they ever going to fall out if they don't even fall below the team that beat them in the championship game? So that's the craziness of I just can't see how they would fall out if they lost and was still rated higher than Clemson. And everybody talked about the Bama money, but no one talked about the SMU money. The general manager for SMU stood in a restaurant with me earlier this summer and said, Martin, we will be competitive because of the way we're going to recruit. And when I walk out of my door, right across the street from me is a row of billionaires. Just billionaires. So You hear what I'm saying? There's so much to get to around this. I don't think the committee was going to win either way, but I think they had already determined the only thing that gets Alabama in was a blowout because the data points for Alabama got stronger Saturday because we now have beaten the SEC champion. The data points for SMU got weaker Saturday. They lost to yet another ranked team. They had already done what they were going to do as long as SMU did not stink it up. That's just Martin's opinion. And we won't get to it today, X, but I want us to look at I'm working on a new system because yes, this system creates more excitement, X. But it still has its inherent flaws in the sense that everybody kept saying, well, you can't be punished for a conference championship. Well, that's what happened last year when it was only 4 teams. FSU was put out because you don't judge playoff teams by, first of all, it needs to start being settled on the field as much as it can. That's number one. Number 2 is you don't judge a team by their worst game. You judge them by their best game if they have enough data points to be judged. Everybody kept judging Alabama by their worst loss, okay? By the worst loss, Oklahoma. But they kept judging, in a positive by their worst loss. You shouldn't be looking. Last year they judged by Alabama upside was greater than what? Florida State's. Because Alabama lost last year. So loss wasn't part of the criteria or Florida State would have been in. This year, they're judging by. And now when you look at the teams, and this is really bad. Texas played the lowest half of the SEC. Indiana played the lowest half of the Big Ten. SMU played the lower half of the ACC. Because they didn't play any ranked teams. Well, there's ranked teams in the ACC, but they didn't play them. And the ones they played, they got beat by. Okay? So when you look at that, that's crazy. And I'm telling you, this committee is a made-for-money presentation. They need to not put out a poll X until this Sunday, yesterday. That should be the first time we hear from the committee because they put themselves in a spot X where they couldn't change it. But if we didn't know where anybody was ranked going into it, nobody would care.
Mm-hmm.
I got one more question. I'm throwing out all my questions, all my stuff that's been going through my head. When did the MAC become on par with the Big Four? Why is that? When did the MAC separate itself from
Mountain West?
I'm sorry. When did the Mountain West separate itself from the American Conference?
The Group of Five?
Yeah. When did it separate? Because why is Army not in it? Army lost 1 game to Notre Dame. Top 5. And they're ranked number 20.
That is the equivalent of Boise's loss to Oregon.
So why is it that Boise is a top 5 team and Army is a 22nd ranked team? What is it about their conference that made them all of a sudden on par? Man, I'm telling you.
The American was also, if you look at it, top to bottom, the American was a tougher conference.
And
because
Army,
the fourth team in the Mountain West was 6-6. And if I'm not mistaken, the 4th team in the American was like 8-4.
My point is, Army is a conference champion in a group of 5, just like Boise. Tell me why there's a 14-team gap between them, whatever it is. 18-team gap. Boise is 4.
19.
And what you call it is 22. So, Pat, you're in. You're in with Martin and Xavier. What's up, man?
Pat,
we'll do away with committees and go back to
if you get up here and say that Jalen should be benched, I'm gonna call you out because I know you didn't say that 2 years ago about Bryce Young.
Fired. I don't want him benched. I want him fired. Somebody's head's got to roll over this crap, X. And
you should have said the same thing about Bryce Young 2 years ago when he led a team that had Will Anderson and more first-round draft picks on it than this team.
You can't explain Oklahoma.
What? He's really low, Chase. Turn him up. Pat, go ahead.
Hey, yeah, man. You can't explain Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. So we lost that game just because of Jalen?
Jalen looked like a deer in the headlights. Yes, he did. We needed.
I'm sorry, I didn't know Jalen didn't block. Didn't have the Bowman interception.
Let him talk. What?
Hey, he didn't have the gumption to do it, and I don't understand why. Hey, it may be that we've got to go to the portal to find a quarterback. I don't know. All I know is we're going to a meaningless game down in Tampa, and we're going to play another unranked team. We're going to beat them. It don't matter. But I just can't understand it. I just don't understand it. And y'all cannot explain Oklahoma.
I can't explain Oklahoma from an offensive or a defensive standpoint. That's my point, Pat.
Hey, Pat, I'll tell you this. Pat, let me tell you this. Pat.
Yeah.
If you want to put Oklahoma on Jalen, and that's the reason why we're not in the playoffs, I'm going to need you to stand 10 toes down and put Vanderbilt, that we gave up 40 points to, on everybody on the opposite side of the ball, because 35 points is enough points to beat Vanderbilt. And guess what? We would be in the playoffs if we won that game.
We didn't beat Vanderbilt because we had a defensive coordinator that came from a directional school. Yes, sir. That's exactly right. Hey, that's exactly why we didn't beat Vanderbilt. Hey, man, if we would have had Martin's defensive coordinator that back when Martin played in '92, I guarantee you he would have been ready to play Vanderbilt. Brother Oliver would have beat Vanderbilt with our team just like a red-headed stepchild. And you know I'm right, Martin Houston.
Well, but what I'm saying is, and I hear you, I agree. There's two things, and I got to let you go, Pat. Two things. Here's the thing. Pat just called up and blamed Jalen because of the Oklahoma game. The same thing that happened defensively happened in the Oklahoma game and the Vanderbilt game. We hadn't stopped them from running yet. We haven't stopped them from running yet. They're both still running the ball. And so this was the entire the entire team. It's just crazy. So we need to get the break here. We got a couple callers. Let me see. We got Chuck and Robert. We'll get them in. We got some comments. We'll add Kennington Smith to the conversation. You're listening to the Martin Houston Show on this Manic Monday. Pat has already started the Jalen's fault that we didn't make the playoffs. So if that's your take, you're welcome to call up and share your opinion. It's this entire team's fault that they didn't make it. But also put some of it on the committee. They could have taken care of it, but the committee also bears some responsibility because they did not get the best 12 team. And by the way, this new playoff system will never get the best 12 teams because there's 5 teams that's guaranteed a spot, regardless of how good they are. The 2 teams that beat Alabama, Oklahoma and Oklahoma and Vanderbilt would probably play in the conference championship game in the ACC. Let's just let that sink in. We'll be back on the other side to keep the conversation rolling right here on your home for Alabama Sports, Tide 100.9 and 1230 a.m.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center. We're getting off to a pretty light start on this Monday morning. Not too much to complain about. I do see where Skyland Boulevard is starting to. It's getting a little volume here on both the east and westbound lanes between 2059 and Hargrove Road is the main point. And we're looking also at Joe Malisham. That's a little on the slower side as you make your way onto Highway 11. With your Tuscaloosa traffic now, I'm Tammy.
Can you hear me, X? Okay, cool.
Year with a bang. This December, it's the month of BMW, featuring the best selection of vehicles and unbeatable year-end savings. Up to $10,000 off on select models. You won't want to miss out on these once-in-a-lifetime deals. The presents under the tree are nice, but the BMW in your driveway, that's the real holiday magic. But hurry, these sizzling savings won't last long. Get to BMW of Tuscaloosa before time runs out on these hot year-end offers. BMW of Tuscaloosa. Take your dreams for a drive.
Got timberland in West Alabama or East Mississippi? North River Timber Company has you covered. Since 2011, Courtney White, a registered forester, along with his expert team, have been managing timberland and harvesting timber across 4 West Alabama counties. They offer comprehensive timber management plans, reforestation services, and appraisals. Courtney White says timber is like money in the bank. Don't let your investment go unrealized. Call North River Timber Company today. Email them at northrivertimberco@gmail.com or call 205-242-5127.
We aren't a winning school. We are a championship school. And we make legends.
Deep 3.
Join the Crimson Tide as they look to continue to rise to the top of the NCAA basketball mountain.
Oh, mercy! The one-handed flush!
Every game, all season, right here. On your home for Alabama basketball. The Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Hey, I'm Martin Houston, and I want to tell you about exciting news happening at Box Eye Care. They've moved to their new location, bringing you a brand new lab, stylish new frames, and a fresh look just for you. Enjoy their expanded frame inventory, competitive prices, and faster service, all with the same great level of service you've come to know and trust. Discover this full-service eye care at Box Eye Care's new location. With their in-house lab, they offer unbeatable value and one of the largest frame collections in town. Schedule your eye exam today and walk out with new glasses in less than an hour in most cases. Visit boxeyecare.com. That's boxeyecare.com or call 205-342-0660. That's 205-342-0660. Visit them at 5003 Oscar Baxter Drive. That's Box Eye Care. Your vision, our priority.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
Wet weather headlines are forecast today and tonight. Cloudy with occasional rain. The high today 66, the low tonight 50. Tomorrow cloudy, rain likely, maybe a thunderstorm in spots. The high tomorrow afternoon in the mid to upper 60s at 67. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 62 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
The sound of Bama Sports. Your show, your team. The Martin Houston Show on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Welcome back into the Martin Houston Show with Martin and Xavier. We're live, local, and got things rolling right here this morning. We got Johnson Marshall and Dentistry keeping us on the airwaves and in your homes and on your phones. That's Johnson Marshall and Dentistry. DentistTuscaloosa.com. DentistTuscaloosa.com. Giving you a smile that'll last a lifetime. Great services, dentistry for all ages, dental implant restoration, orthodontic treatment, sleep apnea, snoring treatment, and a whole lot more. Go to dentisttuscaloosa.com or call them at 205-349-1000. That's Johnson and Marshall Dentistry. All right, X, let's keep things rolling. Man, we got some great comments coming in. People talking about the whole it was hosed. We had a coach send us a message last week that he felt like the ACC game was rigged to get two teams in, and it virtually played out that way. I don't think it's hard to stage a game like that, but it did seem suspicious when you look at how dominant Clemson was. If you take the first quarter, Clemson should have won by 4 or 5 touchdowns. You take the fourth quarter, and they should have lost by 4 or 5 touchdowns. So who knows? But either way, it is what it is. And college football, I think, has even greater challenges now than they had before, even though the rest of the college world, we need to recognize, may very well be more excited about college football going forward than we are in the SEC. I say Alabama because that's what we cover, but I think the rest of the SEC, if you're Alabama, Ole Miss, South Carolina, if you had something where you put the top – listen to this, and Kennington, I want you to respond to this. If you took the top two – just make it 4 conferences. We got to get rid of all these junk conferences because if we're going to grade Boise on one scale and Army on another, it shows that it's rigged. But you take and get rid of those conferences and make everybody be in a conference. And I heard there's a coach who made it into the playoffs. And he said, we have got to make every team play in a conference. And he was one of the top-ranked coaches. He said this craziness is out here that teams are getting in that don't even have an option to play in a championship game if they win out. They don't have that last game. So that being said, take the top 2 teams. You get 4 conferences, take the top 2 teams, and then you have a wild card round, Kennington. Instead of playing a championship weekend, this weekend should have been number 9 through 16. That's the only teams you're ranking. All other ones don't matter. The top 8 are decided by the conference. The next 8 play each other. 9 plays 16, 10 plays 15. You have a wild card. They play in. Now, if you had that set up, Kennington, how many of the SEC schools would be in this week, be into the final 12?
Yeah, probably a lot more than 3. That's like the interesting part about this, like from the SEC gripe perspective, like obviously the strength of schedule and all those things, but the SEC and ESPN signed a pretty lucrative contract, and they had the SEC make these super mega schedules with all these great games, and it created great television, and at the end of it all, the SEC ended up with 3 teams.
Yeah.
Doesn't feel like a fair trade if you're Greg Sankey, but maybe those things will even out in the coming years. But it was really interesting to see how it all unfolded, to the point about Alabama, Clemson, and SMU. Saturday was like the classic cliche, a tale of two halves, where it's like Clemson is beating SMU down so bad where you really start to believe like, wow, they could beat SMU out of the playoffs. And then they do the whole thing where it comes down to a close game at the end, and you're thinking to yourself like, well, it came down to the last play. Like there's little chance that they're going to drop them 5 spots after that, and that's ended up what happened. And so I understand the disappointment and the frustration from Alabama's side, but at the end of the day, this team had several opportunities to take the season by the horns and run with it, and they just failed to do so. So this is just the result at times.
Right, but I guess, Kennington, I would ask you this, Kennington. What did SMU do Saturday that made their schedule stronger in their case stronger?
Nothing.
They
But I do
played at
think that
9-3.
nothing.
The fact
But
that
I do
Clemson
think-
won the game proves that deserving is a misnomer. Clemson
think
got
it's-
in as a 9-3 team who had 2 losses to SEC teams that Alabama beat.
Yeah. I think it's just really more so the optics of it all. And that's probably not like the best answer or a great answer, but it was just kind of one of those things where it's like, I don't think that people could really fathom the committee dropping them 5 spots after losing on the last play of the game. And the other part about this, from the Alabama side and the SEC side, their argument is going to be straight to schedule. If you were to drop SMU 5 spots for losing the ACC championship by 1 play, what is the incentive to play a conference championship game? Because last year, Georgia lost by 3 and dropped from 1 to 6. Florida State won the ACC championship at 13-0, and they got left out of the playoffs. If SMU were to lose on Saturday and drop out of the playoffs, that would have been a very dangerous precedent to set. So I feel like the committee was kind of spooked about what could be and decided to leave them in for that.
But Kennington, they set the precedent. And
they did.
So one year you set the precedence of, hey, you can lose in the championship game and it costs you to. There's been 3 different precedences set the last 2 years. One, you can lose your conference championship game and it drops you out. They've said a second one is if a star player, especially your quarterback, gets hurt, it can drop you out. And then this year they turn around and say your strength of schedule doesn't mean anything because Boise State got a bye with playing in the Mountain West. You keep SMU in, even though they haven't played anybody. Indiana is in when the only team that they played is a team that it is the team that beat them. And even with Texas played 2 of the top 8 teams in the SEC, and they're 1-2 in those games. They haven't scored more than 17 points against the top 18 against the top 2 of the 8 teams that they played in the SEC. So that now you've got 3 different presidents that set.
Yeah, I understand, and I'm with you on all those points, and those are great points. But I agree with you. But I'm trying to make sense of what we saw, and that's the only conclusion that I can come to is that they felt like they had to do this for the greater good, because everything else, when we're talking about what actually has transpired on the field, does not tilt in their favor.
Let me ask you this, Kennington, and then we'll get to the phone. Kennington, how do you so 2 things. I think their whole thing is hogwash. I think they used Alabama to create a whole lot of news talk last week for this reason, and I said this earlier. First of all, Kennington, they just incentivized don't play tough schedules, which is worse for college football. I mean, that's especially from a fan standpoint. I mean, Nick Saban said it, Alabama said it, and there's a lot of other coaches saying it too. Number 2 is how do you explain SMU still being in above Clemson, who just beat them on the field? And you see what I'm saying? I mean, and number 3 is everybody keeps saying, well, the championship games are bogus. Well, ask Arizona State and ask Clemson how bogus they are. Ask UNLV how bogus they are if they had dropped SMU out. I mean, Clemson thinks the championship game is a great idea.
Yeah.
I mean, you see what I'm saying? Everybody keeps saying about the team that loses. What about the team that wins? Georgia likes the championship game.
We loved it last year.
Yeah.
Let's go to Chuck. Yeah. Chuck. I mean, it's so many craziness. They're going to have to get it where they get more of the games, Kennington, were very little. Like, I don't know if you heard me say where I mean, I know you did, taking the 9 through 16, and that's the only rankings that the committee does. Then the rest of it will play out on the field. Yeah. That would be their only ranking. And they should never rank before this Sunday, because I think that's what got us. is if they had everybody ranked and everybody was looking. If SMU had not been ranked and nobody knew that they were ranked 5 spots in front of Alabama and Alabama got in, nobody would be saying anything because they wouldn't know where Alabama was at.
Right. Yeah. Well, they obviously have to drive the interest up. It's kind of what you said a couple minutes ago, kind of using Alabama as a talking point to drive interest through championship weekend. That probably wouldn't be too advantageous from ESPN. They're trying to create conversation and create content and create interest in all of these things. So it would be cool if it was kind of like basketball March Madness where you really don't find out until the Sunday, but I just don't see that playing out in football.
Yeah, and that's what you think about. In football, we still judge by worst loss versus by wins and strength in the top. So that's part of the shot. Chuck, you're in with Kennington, Xavier, and Martin. What's on your mind?
Good morning, you four. I'm just chiming on the conversation. Brother Houston, you made a great point when you started talking about SMU with the billionaires. Yeah, them and the University of Texas. You think about the billionaires, those donors, and all that a light bulb start coming on in your head. You start thinking about all these things. You start thinking about the college football playoffs, and also I had seen Ward Manuel, and by the way, Manuel's from down there in New Orleans. He's from my state, and then last year I was thinking about him when Michigan was his alma mater, and where he's the athletic director was in there. I said, is it right to have him on that as chairman at that committee? But this time I'm looking at it from a different standpoint with him on the committee. I know I'm going to be asking him a lot of questions because he was on yesterday. I want to hear him. He's going to do a sports radio show down in New Orleans. I know they're going to have him on. I just want to hear more of what he has to say about what their reasoning for doing what they did. And also I look at Alabama. It's always with your alma mater. It's always going to be a huge discussion whenever Alabama is going to be in the talks. We have a 12 team. I think it's going to work itself out in seasons to come. But we will see. It's going to always be some head scratching things each season. I'm going to land on that one.
All right, thanks, Chuck. And SMU, they probably aren't going away, guys. This was probably because SMU built the powerhouse back in the day when it was illegal to use their money. Now it's legal to use their money. So SMU probably is on the upswing. But I don't think that this team proved it on the field just because it had 11 wins. Robert, you're in with Martin and Xavier and Kennington. What's on your mind?
Hey, guys.
Hey, now.
Nick Saban, who right now is really the best thing on ESPN, brilliantly said this. The problem was SMU should never have been ranked as high as they were because of their strength of schedule.
That's
like
right.
You just said, Martin, about you should have ranked Army up there too because they had lost a game or lost one, but you never did because you used the justification of Army's strength of schedule. Had you not ever ranked them that high, then it should have been a play-in game for the ACC. We all know, okay, everybody say the ACC is garbage this year. I mean, you got maybe 2 good teams at best. And because this conference is so bad, okay, you're not going to get 3 teams. You're not going to get 2 teams in your conference sucks. You only get 1. This is a play-in game for either Clemson or SMU. There you go. It's your playing game. That way you reward teams who play tougher schedule. Like Nick Saban just said. And that's what Nick Saban said. And of course, that's brilliant. That's why this route should have gone. And like he correctly said, and the athletic director for the SEC, Alabama athletic director said, now you've given us no reason we got to reevaluate all our tough out-of-conference games. No, there's no incentive to play them anymore. And in fact, Clemson we're idiots. Hey, you'd have been guaranteed that you never played Georgia because you wanted that strength of schedule better because that used to matter. That's why Clemson scheduled Georgia. Why would Clemson schedule Georgia? Schedule. Now there's no reason for Clemson to ever do what they did. You get rewarded, and people want to say, Alabama fans are just upset because they want to be Alabama fans upset we didn't get in. It's like you all just said, it's the precedence that is being set by what you did. You have incentivized people for teams to schedule tough games. It's going to happen now. We're not going to get the great games out of conference, especially out of conference, that we used to. And the ACC never has an incentive to schedule better games. All you got to do is just be when you start ACC competition and play Houston Christian all the time, and you do it. Really? That's about okay. That's the best route we're gonna go, right? Okay. And like you said, you might as well bring Army into this then. If that's the route you're gonna go, what they did it was far worse than if they had just let Alabama in, because that, like you said, people say they want, like you all said, you didn't want the conference championship to be meaningless. No one, they're not. Yeah, they're only meaningless until they're not, and most of the time they're not, because somebody needs that game to get in. So they'll never be meaningless. But your idea, of course, Martin, was brilliant. As many times you are. Yeah, let's just do the route of, hey, this weekend is just the wild card weekend for everybody else. They will be off the chain excited, but exciting and fun to watch. This Friday and Saturday weekend, we do have some amazing games with all kinds of things at stake. College football drives you crazy. There's so many great ideas to make this better, and then you always choose the worst. It just drives you crazy. But yeah, that is definitely probably. Oh, one more thing before I go. Pat, that school that you criticized about that coach coming from, that happens to be my school. My education over anybody else's education any day of the week. That's okay to criticize that coach. That's fine and dandy. But hey, leave my school out of this. I appreciate that, man. I can respect you. Leave my school out of it. All right, man.
All right. Hey, thanks, Robert. Kennington, will the SEC ever go to 9 games based on what happened this past weekend?
Yeah, definitely not.
Think about that.
Definitely not.
Absolutely.
I think we were looking at going to 9 games, Kennington, because we had been told strength of schedule mattered. And I don't think I think that's off the table now.
Yeah, it was like 2 prongs. So the SEC throughout the entire season had the most teams ranked in the top 25 despite playing 8 conference games. So the committee obviously doesn't care that the SEC is playing 8 conference games. They had the most ranked teams. And now we were seeing what's happening with teams being left out for the strength of schedule. Just to kind of illustrate this point, we know Alabama on their future schedule has Florida State, Ohio State, and Notre Dame in the coming years. Georgia has Florida State, Louisville, Clemson, and Ohio State in the coming years. Here is what Penn State has in the next 5 years: Nevada, Florida International, Villanova, Marshall, Temple, Buffalo, Ball State, and UMass.
Wow.
And Penn State is going to get a playoff spot just like Georgia and Bama, and sometimes they're going to get a higher seed. So if that's how we're going to do it, then what is the point?
Wow. X.
I'd cancel all of them. I cancel every single one of them. And I'm putting and they can say I'm putting Western Kentucky. I'm keeping Mercer, UT Chattanooga, all those schools. I'm keeping all those schools on lock, because what does it matter at this point? And the other part nobody's talked about, when you look at the fact that Bama played Mercer, Houston Christian is in the same conference that Mercer is in, who SMU played. Mercer 10-2, Houston Christian's 4-7. So pick the worst teams in those D2 conferences from now on.
Yeah. And what's crazy, and we'll get the break here. What's crazy is I actually saw someone make an argument that Nevada, Houston Christian, TCU, and I forget, and BYU was tougher than South Florida, Wisconsin, Mercer, and Alabama's out of conference schedule. I like, okay.
Bama was. I did the math before Saturday, just because I wanted to see. SMU's out of conference schedule was 18-28. Alabama's was 29-17, I think.
Well, I throw this in there. Texas is. Have you seen what Texas's 7 wins are, Kennington?
Oh yeah. Oh man, Texas. There was no bigger winner than Texas, who's just hiding in plain sight with Vanderbilt as their best win, while everybody is taking a crap on Alabama. They're just like, all right, yeah. Appreciate you, Alabama, for creating this diversion while we have the best win of our season being Vanderbilt, and we drop from 2 to 3. So
Texas has 7 wins in the SEC in their year one. Their opponents' records, out of 56 games, their opponents won 18 games, the 7 wins.
Mm-hmm. That's why Kirby Smart called out Greg. That's why Kirby Smart called out Greg Sankey.
I think whoa, that's bad. That's bad. So yeah, it was crazy. Hey, we're gonna get to a break, have a short segment on the other side, then we'll come back and wrap it up. You're listening to Martin Houston Show with Martin and Xavier. Hey, we're gonna be here all season long. It's gonna be fun.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center. Well, we're not doing too bad around town right now, with the exception of a little something on Highway 82. Checking this out on the westbound lanes of Highway 82 at Shelley Hughes Road. You do want to watch out for an accident. It is on the left shoulder, but it's still got traffic a little on the heavier side. Skyland Boulevard not doing too shabby between 2059 and McFarland. You're pretty much tapping on the brakes, but you're moving with your Tuscaloosa traffic now. Tammy Thomas.
Hey, Bama fans. This is quarterback Jalen Milroe for my friends at Tuscaloosa Chrysler, Jeep, Dodge, Ram. Before you shop anywhere else for a Dodge Ram truck, a Jeep, a Dodge Challenger, or a Dodge Charger, shop local. An amazing selection of new and pre-owned vehicles are on the lot now. Go see for yourself at 550 Skyland Boulevard East in Tuscaloosa. Or you can shop online at TuscaloosaCDJR.com. At Tuscaloosa Chrysler, Jeep, Dodge, Ram, you pick it out and we'll work it out. Roll Tide.
As hard as you work, nothing but heavy duty will do. That's why Cypress Supply is your Milwaukee Power Tools dealer. They're also the only locally owned safety store in Tuscaloosa with PPE, fall protection, lifting and rigging supplies, industrial tools, fasteners, construction material, even pallets of water and electrolytes so you can keep working. Cypress Supply delivers within 30 miles. And if they don't have what you need, they'll get it. Cypress Supply, 2036 62nd Avenue, Tuscaloosa. Cypress-supply.com.
As the holiday season approaches, Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC and Taco Casa, under the biggest cactus in town, want to light up Tuscaloosa and West Alabama with a celebration of the people and businesses that bring us magical Christmas lights. We all know the homes and businesses that put in extra love and care with fantastic displays of lights and Christmas decor. Tide 100.9 is celebrating with Light It Up. Taco Casa and Tide 100.9 will award $500 for the best Christmas light display in West Alabama. To enter, upload your photos to Tide109.com. Merry Christmas from your friends at Taco Casa and Tide 100.9.
The 90s called. They said the Gordita Supreme is so back in the new $7 Lux Cravings box from Taco Bell. It's all looking fresh to death with the pillowy 90s Gordita Supreme alongside the beefy 5-layer burrito, double stacked taco, chips with nacho cheese sauce, and medium drink. All for just $7. It's your wallet's favorite cheesy crunchy combo, here for a limited time. Grab yours and relive the decades, only at Taco Bell. At participating Taco Bell stores for a limited time only, while supplies last. Contact store for price and participation, which varies. Drinks excludes freezes, tax extra.
This holiday season, Capital One reminds you to give yourself the gift of 1.5% cash back with the Capital One Quicksilver Card.
Can I earn 1.5% cash back on birds?
Birds?
What if you sent your true love 2 turtle doves plus a partridge in a pear tree?
Sure, but why would anyone want that?
The song was very convincing.
Earn 1.5% cash back on all your holiday purchases with the Capital One Quicksilver Card. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Dixie Battery Supply takes care of all of your battery needs. Find the commercial batteries you're after and never feel powerless again. Come check out our Northport and Tuscaloosa locations or call us at 205-758-9190. And once again, power up all your devices by using Dixie Battery Supply, DixieBatterySupply.com. They offer reconditioned batteries starting at $39.99, and you'll find all the batteries you need. And don't forget to ask us about our golf carts. That's DixieBatterySupply.com.
Interact with the Martin Houston Show by calling us at 205-342-9904 or tuning into the Martin Houston Show on Facebook.
Welcome back into the Martin Houston Show with Martin and Xavier, powered by Box Eye Care. We appreciate you being a part of the program each and every day. Man, there's so much to get to. But Kennington did this committee devalue the entire regular season, and in doing so, is that worse than the championship game? And you know, how are people feeling? Because there was the threat of being left out this year because of SMU, but it ended up getting 2 teams versus 1. If there was no championship game, they would have only gotten 1 team in. So What do you thinking the thoughts are as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, somewhat maybe the regular season has been devalued a bit. I mean, I think it's probably a little too early to say. It is the first year. I think we're going to need a bigger sample size. I think to me, the biggest thing that sticks out, and something that I think is a little bit more concrete, is that it feels like the magic number is 2 losses. Everybody in the playoff field, I believe, has, except for Clemson, but they won their championship. So you pretty much have to win your conference, get the automatic qualifier if you have 3 losses. Other than that, it feels like 10-2 is going to be the mark, which was a conversation at the beginning of the year. Is like, would a 9-3 team be able to get into the playoff? I think that is pretty unlikely moving forward. So I think that's probably my biggest takeaway.
And how is that possible when a 2-loss team could get into the 4? You see what I'm saying? That's what the crazy part is. Everybody act like the third loss is so much worse than the 2 losses where we had 2-loss teams getting in and winning it. So it's just a weird time. But I think that they're going to have to get closer to settling on the field and not in a committee room. Virgil, you're in with Kennington and Xavier on the Empowerment Strategy Solution Hotline. What's on your mind?
Good morning, guys. I got to address Pat. I am so sick and tired of the narrative that Jalen Milroe cost us the Oklahoma game. Did he have a bad game? Yes, he did. Oklahoma's plan was to shut Jalen's run game down, correct?
Correct.
Okay. First series, we throw the ball, we hit guys in stride, in the hands, and they drop them. If they don't drop them, and we make those catches, and then Bernard doesn't just completely stop on a route, that possibly could have been a reception for a TD. Does that not change the narrative of how Oklahoma plays the game?
Very possible.
Do they change because now Jalen's beating them with the throw? The interception to the outside was not on Jalen. We had a guy completely whiff on a block, didn't even try to block him. The fumble, Jalen just about gets broke in two because we can't block a flea. It's totally egregious that we're going to put this on one person when the defense didn't play good, the offensive line didn't play good, the receivers couldn't catch a fly, and the OC refused to get out of his own way and make calls that we could have, because our running backs were moving the ball, but we didn't give it to them.
Yeah,
it just astounds me, and he's not the only one.
At one point in that game, I think Jalen was 2 for 9, and he had 4 or 5 drops. He had 4 drops, and then the Bernard play.
Hey.
So how different does it look there? How different is it if Ryan Williams' toe isn't barely out of bounds? They don't. We talk about this SMU game. You realize what happened in this SMU game was the same that happened in the Oklahoma game at the start of the fourth quarter, except we got screwed on a call?
Exactly. My point exactly.
Kenneth, I'll let you respond to Virgil, but I have to share Blind Squirrel Sports. This is the greatest comment that I have heard in defense of Jalen Milroe ever, Virgil. Blind Squirrel Sport, a Georgia fan says, Jalen Milroe cost us the Georgia game 2 years in a row.
Amen.
Hey, thanks, Virgil. Man, appreciate it. Kenneth, to your response, man. That's great.
I agree. I agree 100%. Again, it's really just kind of crazy the negativity that's around Jalen Milroe, like who has won as much as he has won. As a starting quarterback, it's pretty jarring. And I mean, just to blame him for Alabama's shortcomings singularly is just such low-hanging fruit, honestly. And everybody has a part to play in what's happened this season. I mean, yes, he wasn't great against Oklahoma, but if we go back to the Vanderbilt game, Alabama's offense did score 35 points. And correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're at the University of Alabama and you score 35, that's supposed to be a win, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Offense did their job. They scored 35. Defense gave up 40. So it's not on Jalen Milroe. Everybody has a part to play in what's happened this year.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, hey, let's get the break. We'll get Philip coming back on the other side.
Coming up on The Game with Ryan Fowler.
Coming up on the Monday edition of The Game, starting at 2 p.m., we're either going to be celebrating or we're going to be crying. We'll talk about Alabama's playoff chances. At that point will be known. We'll recap it with Drew DeArmond. We'll talk to Martin Houston. We'll talk to Barrett Salee right here on The Game with Ryan Fowler, starting at 2 p.m. on Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC, your home of Alabama Crimson Tide Sports.
The longest running sports program in Tuscaloosa. The Game with Ryan Fowler. Weekdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app. Tide 100.9 Traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center. Well, we're not doing too bad around town right now, with the exception of a little something on Highway 82. Checking this out on the westbound lanes of Highway 82 at Shelley Hughes Road. You do want to watch out for an accident. It is on the left shoulder, but it's still got traffic a little on the heavier side. Skyland Boulevard not doing too shabby between 2059 and McFarland. You're pretty much tapping on the brakes, but you're moving with your Tuscaloosa traffic now. Tammy Thomas.
This report is sponsored by Mothers Against Drunk Driving.
It's the year-end clearance sale at Townsend Nissan going on now. You can save thousands. See BJ or Kylan today at Townsend Nissan, your savings place.
For victims of drunk and drug driving, our grief is unique. But you are not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call our 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org.
Did you know that 90% of the lawyers you see or hear advertised aren't even in Alabama?
Just think about that. I used this guy, Stephen Mesrano, twice because he did what no other lawyers could do. He won for me, and he can win for you. Mez wins.
Thanks, guys. I'm attorney Stephen Mesrano, and I win. Call me, 205-800-8000, and let me fight for you. And when you call, you'll actually talk to me. 205-800-8000. I've got this.
No representations made that the quality of legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by other lawyers.
Like the Alabama Crimson Tide, Urban's Working Western believes that you need to develop a strong team to carry out a successful game plan. At Urban's, our dedicated and knowledgeable staff works hard to have the right lineup of products like Ariat, Wrangler, Carhartt, Kool, and Levi's. We also are trained to serve you, our customer. Urban's does all this to be efficient and provide you with the lowest possible price. Come experience the Urban's Working Western home team service today. Tell them Van the Boot Man sent you. Roll Tide.
Taco Casa, quality, taste, and value under the biggest cactus in town. They've been doing it the right way each and every day for 50 years and counting. If you're looking for a great option for lunch and or dinner, then you need to check out Taco Casa. Taco Casa, and while you're there, don't forget to get a big glass of that sweet tea. Visit them online at tacocasa.com. That's tacocasa.com. Quality, taste, and value on the biggest cactus in town. That's Taco Casa, tacocasa.com. Visit the pharmacy at Midtown. That's the pharmacy at midtown.com. TJ and his team are looking for the opportunity to provide you with great services, including compounding, home delivery, and a whole lot more. You're looking for a great pharmacy that'll take care of all of your needs, including wellness classes, including health and more. That's the pharmacy at Midtown. Call them at 205-579-9933. If you're looking for a great pharmacy, you need to try the pharmacy at Midtown. That's the pharmacy at Midtown, pharmacy at midtown.com.
Keep it locked into Tide 100.9 for more of the Martin Houston Show with Martin Houston and X's and O's Sports, Xavier Houston.
Welcome back into the Martin Houston Show, man. It's going to be a rapid fire. But Kennington, I have to ask you, would Ole Miss be in, would Alabama be in with Ole Miss's resume? Because resume is Georgia, they dominated. South Carolina, they dominated. That's Bama's best 2 wins. How is Ole Miss ranked behind us?
They have the worst loss. Probably will be my answer. They lost to 4-8 Kentucky at home. That is a tough look. Georgia almost suffered that fate, but they avoided it. So I think that's what did Ole Miss in. But truthfully, I don't know why they were not a factor in this discussion at all. I don't understand the national push for South Carolina. That was like the most bizarre thing to me.
Yeah.
was like they were trying to make South Carolina a thing. Yes, they were playing well, but resume-wise, I felt like they were distant behind Alabama and Ole Miss. I'm not sure why Ole Miss was kind of left out of this, but Alabama probably would have had a better chance had they had Ole Miss's resume. Really, if Alabama had finished the job against Georgia when they played them, maybe we're having a different conversation.
Hey, and last thing, but Kentucky, didn't they beat them on the last play of the game?
It was a close game. I'm not sure if it
Georgia?
was the last play of the game, but it was a
I mean, they lost at the end of the game. I'm just saying the Ole Miss loss. It's just weird. And people saying that Bama should have fell 6 spots and all of this stuff. That's the problem with the committee is they determine the value of one loss versus it just being a loss. They can drop you out of everything by one loss or put you in by one win, or not impact you by a loss like they did at SMU. SMU lost to 2 ranked teams, and they are still one of the top teams. Philip, you're in. Got about 60 seconds. Philip, take it away, man.
Well, the problem is the committee, Martin, they basically told a story. They weren't truthful. They went from data points to deleting data. I mean, they completely deleted data, and they went from data points to subjectivity.
Yeah.
Okay. So they, all this talk about scheduling and all this high level of debate over scheduling and data points and all that. I was afraid of this. I was afraid that's going to happen. I've been preaching it all week that if SMU won in dramatic fashion, which or came back and lost in dramatic fashion, which is what happened, that they would be in because the committee knew that they needed to win over the nation. They weren't worried about data points. Come on, that was the biggest ball-faced lie I've ever seen. And they're the playoff, Martin. They're the playoff committee. They are totally in bed with the playoffs and the championship weekend and all that. They're not called the strength of schedule committee.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. Thanks, Philip. Great point. Kennington, I'll let you close it out, man.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was saying earlier. I feel it was more so about the optics. The ACC, what happened last year, trying to protect conference championship games, all of those things. Maybe it's Alabama bias or Alabama fatigue, but there were some external things that played besides what we just saw in the show that kept Alabama out. But at the end of the day, they could have won their way in themselves. So it's just a tough lesson that they have to learn.
All right, tell them where they can find you.
Yeah, on X at skinnykenny_theathletic.com and theathletic, however you get your mobile apps, searching my name, Kennington Smith or Alabama Athletics.
Thanks, Kennington.
All right, this is Xavier with Martin and the Martin Houston Show. We had Chase pressing all the right buttons. Great conversations today, and we'll pick this up tomorrow with DC of DC Capstone Report.
Yep, and we'll talk about we'll talk about the transfer portal. We'll still talk about Alabama not getting in, how we hate the committee, how we hate this, and how we love that. And I have to give a shout out to my daughter, who is an SEC champion over at Georgia. I'll probably shout her out again several times, but SEC champion Georgia. I don't know if it's congratulations to the Dogs, but congratulations, Miss Houston, on getting that ring. Make sure you get your quarterback back, or maybe get Gunner ready. We'll talk about all those things and more right here in your home for Alabama Sports, Top 100.9, 1230 a.m. And remember this, trust in the Lord always, lean not your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. Roll Tide, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the Martin Houston Show on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide.